As long as I was going after the crooks that didn't have badges, I was everybody's hero.
Breaking news, Vic. This is a special episode. We're doing a Thursday episode, which we haven't done a Thursday episode in like months.
I know.
But it's special and it's needed.
It's needed. It's about what's going on in our world today, what's happening right now. And you know me, Jonathan, I've got an opinion. Ask me, I've got an opinion.
So, well, what's troubling you, Vic?
Well, for so long, I wasn't watching the news. I was very much at peace not watching the news. I was still getting news because I was reading the paper, but I wasn't watching it on TV. But with everything that's been going on lately, I wanted to start watching some of it and seeing it sort of firsthand instead of just reading about it. And it's very troubling. What our country is going through now, I think, are birth pangs. Birth pains. I think this is the chaos before the new and better organization, the new and better form. I think we're going through spiritual evolution right now, as human beings, as a country, and as the world. I think we're evolving. George Floyd was murdered on Memorial Day. That was only what 11 days ago, 12 days ago, and since then, the country has pretty much turned upside down. People have forgotten about the virus. They're gathering in big crowds because they feel very strongly about what's going on. And I understand. I don't blame them. But what's troubling is looking at the crowds and seeing all the faces that aren't wearing masks.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I think a lot of people enjoy flirting with death. It gets their adrenaline going. It gets them excited. Otherwise, you wouldn't have people who hang glide, people who bungee jump.
Mhm.
My son flirted with death a lot.
With his
That's
cliff
why he
diving.
was a what?
His cliff diving.
His cliff diving. He also did a lot of bungee jumping, and then his drug use was flirting with death. If he were still around now, I don't know how he would be handling this situation, but I doubt he'd be wearing a mask because he was always flirting with death. And I think we have a lot of people out there now who are flirting with death. I think we've got a whole lot of people who, and this is not what I hope or wish. I hope I'm wrong. Uh, but there are a lot of people right now who I think are flirting with the idea of suicide. Maybe not killing themselves with a gun or with an overdose,
Right.
but a slower suicide. Some people are drinking themselves to death, and some people are purposefully exposing themselves to this COVID virus. And it's sad and it's disturbing. I think we're going to lose a lot of people. I know the numbers haven't hit uh, uh, it hasn't hit that exponential curve quite yet, but I think that's because of the social distancing that was in place and because we were shut down for a while.
Right.
And I understand the compulsion to get back to work, to get back out amongst people. I miss you, Jonathan. I
Yes.
miss our studio.
I know. I do too, man.
I would like to be doing this at the studio, but I want to be cautious. I want to be careful. We still haven't reopened our office fully. Uh, Thankfully, we had everything in place so that we can do almost everything now remotely. We have our staff meeting every morning. Only one person a day, sometimes two, go into the office. Uh, So we're trying to deal with it. We're not flirting with suicide. I know all of you guys, and we're playing it very cautiously. But there are many ways to kill yourself, and some of them are slow, like alcoholism and drug abuse,
Hmm.
overeating, uh, couch potato lifestyle, uh,
Yeah, it's true.
and exposing yourself on purpose to the COVID virus.
Right.
Now, some people have to get around it. Our first responders, our medical professionals, but they are taking the precautions, and even some of them are still getting sick. My concern is that we saw a big spike after the spring break. Now, with all of these protests going on in every major city in the United States, we're going to see another big spike. It's already started.
Yes.
And my concern about the spike is that our hospitals cannot handle it.
Right.
Our hospitals are at the breaking point. Some of them are, not all of them.
Right.
But if this thing goes exponential, all of our hospitals will be at the breaking point where if you get sick, you've got no place to go. You've
That's right.
got nobody to take care of you. And the death rate is going to go way up, way up. Uh, I understand the anger over the murder of George Floyd. Uh, we watched it with our collective eyes through cell phone video. And you and I have talked about that all year long about do the right thing
Yes.
because you might as well be transparent because you are not going to get away with it. Everywhere you go now, you're being videotaped. You're not going to get away with it. All the looters who are taking stuff out of Macy's in that place, all that's on video. Once things come back to order, those people will be tracked down and they'll be facing criminal charges.
Hmm.
And I know there's talk about disbanding the police departments. You and I have talked about how we need to break it down and build it back up from the training up.
Yes.
So we haven't talked about throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, that's a little crazy, Vic.
We've never suggested that, have we, Jonathan?
No, we have not suggested that one.
No, we suggest getting rid of the bad apples and changing the training,
Yes, sir.
changing their worldview, getting away from this us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
Uh, it's uh, it's just a frightening thing. Now, my issue with the police departments, the militarization of our police,
Yeah.
my issue with President Trump is that they think that their authority, their force, their power is equal to truth. Well, authority isn't truth. Truth should be authority. And I think we're starting to wake up to that. And I think of this talk in Minneapolis about just throwing out the police department is a move toward truth being the authority rather than authority being the truth.
Mhm.
I really don't think they're going to get rid of the entire police department. They can't.
No, they can't.
Why do you think they can't?
Well, I mean, you have to look at the roles of police, Vic. You know, we work in the realm of personal injury. Prime example: when you get in a car wreck, who do you call?
Mm-hmm.
Now, 911. The police are usually the first responders, followed by EMS, followed by ambulances, whatnot. I mean, you need a police force, even for the very simple fact of the safety of people when you have incidents. That's their primary role, and I think you're dead on, man, when it's all about the training.
Yeah. So it's not about getting rid of all the policemen because, as you said, a couple bad apples ruins the barrel. But take those good apples out, wash them off, clean them up, and put them in a new barrel.
There you
You
go.
know, there are a lot of good policemen out there. I've known many good policemen in my career, men who are honest, men who are intelligent, men who had hearts, and men who would risk their lives for your safety. Now, it's sad that some of them commit murder, commit theft, abuse their authority, thinking their authority is truth, but it's not. It's just not. Uh, what matters is what is right. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Camelot. It's a really old movie.
Ooh, nope. I remember
It's a,
Excalibur. Remember Excalibur? That was a great one too.
that was a good one. No,
But no, hit me with Camelot.
Camelot's a lighter movie. Richard Harris was in it, and he played King Arthur.
Mhm.
And he was sitting there with Guinevere trying to think about what they could do, because this was before the round table. And he just knew that things just weren't right when might equaled right. If you had the might, then I'm right. I get my way. And he said, no, might shouldn't equal right. Right should equal might. And that's how he got the idea for the Knights of the Round Table. And they would do the right thing. And they would enforce justice and truth. And truth would be what mattered, not power.
Mm.
And so that's the problem I have with the police. We need to take King Arthur's approach, even though he was a fictional guy, maybe. Some people say he wasn't. And start looking at truth as the authority. We're seeing that come about now, I hope, through all this turmoil on the street. And what I want to encourage everybody to do, if you're going to risk yourselves out there protesting, be sure to risk going to vote. Now, I was watching the news yesterday, so when we air this, it will be like 2 days ago, where the lines in Georgia, because their voting machines were all screwed up, and there's conspiracy theories going around about that may be true. May be true, because it's funny that the machines in the minority neighborhoods are having the worst problem.
Oh,
They're the ones that had the longest lines. But they were interviewing a young black lady in line with her umbrella in the rain, holding her baby. And she says, I've been here for, I forget, 3 or 4 hours. And the reporter said, how long are you going to stay? And she said, as long as it takes.
wow.
I respect that so much. Now, that's patriotism.
Yes, sir.
That's exercising your power. So if you're going to risk yourself to go vote.
Incredible.
You know, it's good to fight for equitable laws. This country has evolved. When people say make America great again, I don't get that. We're always making ourselves great. We're always improving. Racism is not as bad as it was when I was a child.
Right.
The laws have changed. People fought for equitable laws. Martin Luther King sacrificed his body and his life fighting for equitable laws. So many of the others lost their lives, were attacked by dogs, were beaten with billy clubs, were shot in the face with fire hoses, and were shot with bullets, were lynched, were murdered. Even some white people who were working with the Freedom Riders were kidnapped by the KKK and murdered, and their bodies not found for a long time after they were murdered. So they were fighting for these equitable laws. And as a result, we had the Civil Rights Act of 1984. Thank you, Hubert Humphrey and Lyndon Johnson, for that. They fought so hard for that and pushed it through. And so things are better, and we had good Supreme Court decisions making it better. And then somewhere along the way, we started making this curve. People started getting afraid. The people in power, mainly white people, started getting afraid that they were going to lose something. I've heard white people say, well, I've lost my rights. And I have to tell them, no, you haven't. You have more rights than you've ever had. partly because of what some of these other people fought for and sacrificed. You're not losing your rights, just that everybody else wants to have the same right. And they should. We should all have equal rights. Don't you think, Jonathan?
Yes, I think that's pretty fundamental. Yes, sir.
You'd think. But in the history of our country, it hasn't been that way.
True. True.
The Native Americans were pretty much extinguished.
Correct.
Then the Irish came along. They were discriminated against. No Irish or dogs allowed. I'm seeing posts on Facebook now where it says no Mexicans or blacks or dogs allowed. Well, used to there was no Irish allowed, no Irish or dogs. The Polish people were terribly discriminated against.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Italians.
Oh yeah.
And now the Polish, the Italians, the Irish, you can't already tell them apart in America, and I'm glad. Now, people of darker skin, you're always going to be able to tell them apart. But that's why we shouldn't look at the surface. We should look at the heart. That's why I like yoga. Yoga means union.
Yeah.
It means the joining together. That's why even when I gave the speech out in California that you went with me, remember how I started it and ended it?
I do.
I didn't say namaste because I didn't want to offend somebody with a foreign word, because so many people don't like anything that's different. So what I said is the spirit in me honors and greets the spirit in you. And then when I closed that speech, I said, and I'm Vic Fazell, and the spirit in me honors and greets the spirit in you. That's what namaste means.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some yoga studios. I don't know if they're still around. I don't know what all's open now since the quarantine, because I've quit going. But there were some teachers who wouldn't say the word namaste because they thought it would offend some of the Baptists here in Waco.
Is that right?
Well, tell them what it means. Educate them. It's not a religion. Yoga's not a religion. Yoga is, in my opinion, and in the opinion of my buddy and one of my gurus, MC Yogi.
Yeah.
Yoga is an ancient science designed to liberate the mind. It's not about just the postures. There are 8 limbs of yoga. Only one limb is the postures. And that's, they call that asana, the postures. And MC Yogi says many people think that means touching the toes, but asana is really about touching the soul.
Oh, the soul toes.
The soul. And that's what we need here. Now, we need changes in the law, but the process for fighting for different and better laws, that's different than transforming the consciousness of human beings.
Yeah.
We need to change the law, but what we need the most is evolution of consciousness. Changing the laws alone isn't going to fix this. We changed a lot of those laws, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the National Guard still had to be brought in to enforce the right for people to vote, had to be brought in to enforce the integration of our schools. When I was a little boy, I was born in segregated Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We didn't move to Texas until I was almost a teenager. Or no, I was already a teenager by the time we got to Leander. And I remember one time I was 7, and I was pretty smart. I'd been reading since I was 5. And my dad and I drove to a hamburger joint to pick up some hamburgers to take home. And when we drove, and it was a walk up to the window thing. And when we walked up to the window, on the wall were 2 beautiful, shiny, white porcelain water fountains.
Mm-hmm.
There was a sign over one that said white, and there was a sign over the other that said colored. and there were people standing around. And I said, Daddy, I don't understand. They both look white to me. I mean, both water fountains were white. My dad goes, shh, I'll explain it in the car. So when we got in the car, my dad told me what segregation was. And
Wow.
my dad was not a racist. I love my dad. My dad is still alive. He's 93 right now. He's a retired Baptist preacher. And he said, son, that's because they won't let people of color drink out of that water fountain with the same water fountain that white people drink out of. He said, that's called segregation. He
Yeah.
said, that's why the black children in this town go to a different school. And he said, son, that's not right. It's just not right. He said, we're all human beings. So I love my dad for giving me my very first lesson in what racism was and how it was wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good lesson. That's a lesson that kids now don't have to have
Right.
because we don't have segregation. But our parents should still be talking to their children about racism,
Sure.
about segregation, because there's still a lot of unenforced segregation.
Sure.
And
Sure.
as my dad said, it's just not right. I think I've told you the story before about the kid that on the bike that hit the stop sign. I'd like to tell our listeners
No.
that story.
Please tell me that story. What?
This was a couple years later, same town in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And the whole family's in the car. My sister, my mother, my dad, and we're pulling up to a stop sign to stop. And there's a young black kid on a bicycle. He may have been 12. I was maybe 9 by then. And he was pedaling really fast down the sidewalk and was going to go past that stop sign, not on the street, but on the sidewalk. And he hit a bump on the sidewalk and flew off that bicycle and hit the pole that held the stop sign. And it scraped his arm so bad. I mean, it just scraped it all the way from the wrist down to the elbow. And the funny thing about the way it scraped his skin was that it made that scrape look white. And I remember seeing that and thinking, oh my God, we're all white underneath. Well, I was wrong. We're not all white underneath. We're all the same underneath. It's neither black nor white. It's flesh and blood. It's our breath. You know, it's us. It's our spirit is what's underneath. And that's why I like Namaste. The spirit in me honors and greets the spirit in you. Man, my dad slammed on the brakes and he jumped out of the car.
Yeah.
To go help this young man. And my mother, it took her a little longer to evolve. I don't think my dad was ever a racist, even when he was a kid, but my mom was. And she says, what's your father doing helping that N word?
Wow.
And man, I was just like scared to death. And my dad got out and man, he held that boy in his arms.
Oh, wow.
And made sure he was all right and talked with him for a while until he was okay. And my dad said, do you want me to take you home? He said, he had tried his bike and it was still rolling. He said, no, I think I can get home. And he started pushing his bike off. Mm-hmm. And then my dad got in the car and my mom said, why were you helping that N word?
Yeah.
My dad said, don't you ever say that word in front of my children. I said, that is wrong. That is wrong. Couple years later, my dad took a job as a missionary in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. And we were living out there. And that was when Martin Luther King gave his wonderful I Have a Dream speech. And we were all watching that live on TV because, man, the TV stations, they covered that march on Washington. They broke into regular programming and they covered his entire speech. That's back when we only had, well, in that town, we only had 2 channels. And my mom was cooking in the kitchen and she came out and, you know, and I got to say my mom was bipolar. And so that was difficult for her. And it was difficult for all of us. Anybody that's ever lived with somebody that's bipolar, it's difficult. She got better as she got older. But she was cooking in the kitchen, and she came in and she says, "That's just wrong. That's just wrong. I hate that. I hate that. They should all die and go to hell." And boy, my dad jumped up and he went into the kitchen. He had some little talk with her. And a few minutes later, she came in and he came back and sat on the couch with us. And we were all just glued to the TV. And my mom came to the kitchen and she said, "Talo," she says, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. And I am wrong. I am wrong." And from that moment on, even my bipolar mother was never a racist again.
Wow.
So we can evolve. So changes alone are not going to fix what's going on. Changes of the heart will fix what's going on. Only evolution of consciousness will fix what's going on. You know, racism is nothing but selective cruelty. It's a way to dehumanize people. We have to be sensitive to all life, to all human beings, and evolve our consciousness and open our hearts. We have to respect all life, even animal life. Cruelty to animals is the wrong thing. I hope when we come out of this, we even reevaluate not just our police departments, but our meat industry. The way we're treating hogs in cages, the way we treat some of the cattle, it's inhumane. It's wrong. Now, I'm not advocating being a vegetarian. I'm just advocating humane treatment, because if you can be cruel to any of God's creatures, you can be cruel to anybody. You know, it's not hard to step over that line. If you can be cruel to one person, you can be cruel to all. Now, seeing George Floyd murdered before our collective eyes, it moved us. It moved us all. But we must be moved by all cruelty. We must be moved to do something. You know, President Trump tweeted just the other day that he thought that 75-year-old man who got pushed down by the police was faking it.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
President Trump, was he faking the blood? You know, I saw how that policeman shoved that old man. And he's only 6 years older than me. I shouldn't call him an old man, but because he was out there doing the best he could. I wish I couldn't tell if he had a mask on or not. But that's adding to the polarization of our nation.
Oh, yeah.
And we need to be brought together. And I'm not telling anybody how to vote. And I'm not saying that I dislike Donald Trump. I just dislike some of the things that he says that tends to throw gasoline on the fire and tends to ignite people's fear.
Right.
Everybody is afraid they're going to lose something. You know, if we all love each other, we're not going to lose anything. You only lose when there's hate. You only lose when there's cruelty. Jesus told us, resist not evil. Don't fight fire with fire. He said you can control it by loving it. Now, we do have to have law enforcement. We do have to have our military, because there's the fringe that we have to protect ourselves from. But we should not be polarizing this country. You know, it was cruelty when the police killed our family dog in 1985.
Old Spanky.
Oh, Spanky. Yeah, I should paint a mural for Spanky, because Spanky was a victim of law enforcement too.
Mm-hmm.
And a policeman that could kill a cute little Sheltie dog like that, a 4-year-old boy cried for when it died. A policeman like that is dangerous and could kill anybody. We have to stop all forms of cruelty. A group of people who could sanction killing a dog would feel perfectly fine about sending an innocent man to prison for the rest of his life, which is what they tried to do to me.
Truth.
Yeah, that's what we've been talking about for the past year.
Yes.
And I used my own experiences as a springboard to talk about opening the heart and evolution of consciousness. Because everybody that did anything bad to me back then, I could hold a grudge. I could still be angry. I could, it could have already killed me from the stress of that, because anger puts all kinds of chemicals in your body that are poison.
Mm-hmm.
Anger will kill you, the person who gets angry. So don't get angry. Don't get angry. Try to understand other people's points of view. Those people that killed our dog also basically arrested that 4-year-old boy when they took him and his mother with guns on out of that restaurant while they were eating. They hadn't even had a chance to take a bite of their breakfast yet.
That's right.
Remember, they waited until they were served and then took that little boy.
No pancakes.
No pancakes. And the people who would kill the dog would be okay about doing that to a little boy, would be okay about locking me up forever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it scarred that little boy so bad that he's dead now. And I miss my son terribly. Every once in a while, something will come up that reminds me of him, and I'll get weepy about it, you know?
Yeah, man.
In a way, he was a victim of this kind of evil as well. And, the bad men with guns, that was his terrible dreams that he started self-medicating for when he was only 5 years old. So I understand the anger, but be safe about it. Don't risk yourself. Fact check everything. Don't be like president. Fact check everything. And when you, and I'm not just on Trump, it's the other side too, the fringe on the other side.
Both sides, Vic.
Hmm.
Yep, both sides.
So fact check both sides. Fact check everything before you repost it, because we don't want to be reposting stuff that the Chinese government and the Russian government are putting into our Facebook and our Instagram and our tweets. We don't want to be helping them with their propaganda to destroy this country. And I'm not saying anything bad about the Chinese or the Russians either. I understand why they're doing it, because we've done it to them, you know? So we just need to stop that kind of stuff. Awareness. Who said that?
Anthony DeMello.
I gave you your first book on Anthony DeMello. It was called Awareness. And you, what?
Great book. Gave it to me 16, 17 years ago. An incredible read.
Yes, it is.
Anthony DeMello.
I've probably given away 300 copies of that book. We should order some more and give one to, say, the first 10 people that give us a review.
That's a good idea.
Because we need some more reviews, people. We've gotten great emails from all over the world. Poland, the Netherlands, New Zealand. Like I said before, everywhere but China, because things come out of China, but nothing gets into China.
Willy Wonka factory.
You know, this morning I was drinking a cup of coffee on my porch, and I was watching the birds. I keep bird feeders, front yard and backyard, and we have a lot of birds here. I love the birds. They entertain me every morning with their beautiful music and with their fluttering around and flying back and forth. And we have painted buntings, and we have cardinals, we have crows, and we have mockingbirds. And one thing I noticed looking at the birds recently is that they don't hang around together. The cardinals and the buntings, they get along pretty well. They're peaceful birds. But then the mockingbird will come along, because the mockingbird has a fear that some other bird might hurt their baby birds. And so they run those birds off and scare them off, and it's this clatter and all this tweeting and feathers ruffling, and they run them off. And the mockingbirds will even run off a crow, because the crow's bigger and more powerful, but the mockingbird is fast agile and got a sharp beak. And so I've seen the mockingbirds chase off the crows. They don't hang around together. That's a bird form of racism. I'm not bad-mouthing the birds because that's their nature. That's the way they are, to help them procreate and protect their offspring. But as human beings, we don't need to be that way. We right now, with what's going on, we are, if I can use a phrase, I think Aldous Huxley said this, we're trembling upon the precipice of change.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't think of his name right now, but another author, he wrote The Heart of Hebrew History and a book on the New Testament and a whole bunch of others, like in one called Cleansing the Doors of Perception. I'll think of his name in a minute. It was Houston Smith. And he refined that, some trembling upon the precipice of change. But that's where we are right now. We're on the precipice. We're on the edge of the cliff, just about to not fall off, but to fly off,
Mm-hmm.
to change, to soar. So if we overcome racism, when we overcome racism, then we have evolved another step above the animals. Because when we're angry, we're running off those who aren't like us. Bloodhound Gang had a song, and I don't give a damn if you don't like me, because I don't like you if you're not like me. Well, that's the way too many people are. I don't give a damn if you don't like me, because I don't like you if you're not like me. Well, we need to evolve beyond that, and I believe we're doing it, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think
we're one more step toward our evolution of consciousness. One more step higher than the animal kingdom. One more step to being aware of our own spirit and the spirit of others, and letting our spirit greet and honor the spirit in others. Hi, I'm Vic Fazell. During these trying times, you might want to just stay home. And at the law offices of Vic Fazell, we understand. That's why we're set up to handle your personal injury claim without you even having to come in. Just give us a call, and we'll take it from there. We can send any paperwork straight to your smartphone or computer. Don't delay, because if we don't put money in your pocket, you don't owe us anything. I'm Vic Fazell.